Hi, it's me, Annalisa Boyd, Orthodox Christian wife, mom to 8, and the author of The Ascetic Lives of Mothers. I'm laughing because I just tried to do the intro and I said that I was an Orthodox Christian mom and wife to 8, but I'm not that. We don't do that. That is not the Orthodox way, but that's why I'm laughing. Okay, so today I'm going to talk a little bit about more of my journey, I guess, as a mom, embracing mommyhood and what it means to be working out my salvation one mommy moment at a time. And that started with a wonderful quote I received from an abbess. And it was during a time where I was not questioning, but wondering, just from the things that I was reading, how it would be possible for me as a layman, as a mom, as a wife to one person, how it would be possible for me to try to live a spiritual life. Would it be possible? Because a lot of the reading I was doing were books that were written by monastics for monastics or by monastics for lay people, and there was just that feeling of, I guess, a little bit of doubt as to whether or not it was possible to truly follow Christ the way a monastic is able to follow Christ without distractions. I'm thinking without distractions. I know better now, but I didn't know better then. I know they have distractions, but it it was a very good quote. And it's a quote from St. John Chrysostom, and it is this: "You greatly delude yourself in error if you think that one thing is demanded from the layman and another from the monk, since the difference between them is that whether one is married or not, while in everything else they have the same responsibilities, because all must rise to the same height, and what has turned the world upside down is that we think only the monk must live rigorously, while the rest are allowed to live a life of indolence." Now, I had an opportunity to go visit the monastery. I was very encouraged by this quote, but I had truly had reluctance about the idea of visiting this monastery because a number of women from our parish had visited the monastery, and several of them came back, and what seemed to me, and this is only what it seemed to me, and it was probably just my own um, um, insecurities, but it seemed that after they went, they came back, and maybe it was just that they were changed somehow, but it seemed like they were always wanting to go back to the monastery. And to me, I interpreted that as meaning that they weren't content out here in the world, and that there was this longing to be at the monastery. And these were married people. Most of them were married people that I was seeing this in. And so I was really worried about going to the monastery because I didn't want to go there. Mom to 8, hello. I didn't want to go there and have the feeling of coming back and not feeling content with where the Lord had me, and always longing for something that I wouldn't be able to obtain to be a monastic, because I am a wife and a mother. So it's not something that, at this point anyway, it is not something that is part of what I'm going to be doing. So after some time, I did have a wonderful opportunity to go with a friend of mine and two of her kids and somebody else's child, and it was so beautiful. But I still didn't know what it was going to be like. I was afraid that I was going to see Gila monsters and these big spiders and rattlesnakes, and I was going to die or something like that. But it all turned out okay. But the thing that really stuck out to me, I had the opportunity to go into their beautiful chapel and into their temple, and I was drawn to the icon of the Annunciation. And I just kept on being drawn back to that icon. And I was praying and I was listening and I was trying to be attentive. But that icon really spoke to me in that moment, what we're celebrating is the Theotokos said yes to Christ, the first one to say yes to Christ. And that is what we're called to do. We are called to say yes to Christ. That is all I'm being called to do, is to say yes to Christ. And he called me to be a wife, and I said yes. And he called me to be a mother, and I said yes. And so that is the life I'm supposed to be living. I'm supposed to be like the Theotokos. I'm not going to be like the Theotokos because she's the Theotokos. But I was called, as she was called, to say yes to God. And whatever he asked her to do, she said, let it be to me as you have said. And that needs to be what I say in my life. Let it be to me as you have said. And that was really encouraging. And I was able to enjoy my time there. And I was able to be fine coming back. That was my biggest fear. I mean, I really enjoyed the peace there, but I don't feel a longing. And that was the fear. That was the afraid I had. That was the fear that I had, that I was going to feel a longing and feel discontent in being a mom. Now, that is not to say that there aren't those days where I would like to sell some of my children, or I would like to, move and not tell anybody. But but most of the time, even with the challenges and the struggles, I am so thankful that the Lord has called me to be a wife and a mother. And I do aspire, even though I feel like I fail all the time, I do aspire to say yes to Christ every time he asks me to do something. And the nice thing and the hard thing is that one thing that he doesn't have to whisper every day, here's your calling, here's your calling. He has already let me know that my calling is a wife and a mother. That is what I've said yes to. And so that is what I need to pursue. And one thing I was so encouraged by, and I don't have the quote right now, but I'll try to find it. But I was reading from the newly canonized Saint Paisius of Mount Athos, who I've adored. The first time I heard his writings was at the monastery. The nuns would read during the meal times, and which was wonderful. My kids would not let me do that, but I was really tempted to do that at our home, but they said no. Anyway, but one of the things that he said in his book on the family is that he learned to pray at an early age from his mother, because she would walk around the home and pray the Jesus prayer. And he would see that the moment she started to get frustrated, she would cross herself and pray the Jesus prayer. Or if she was putting something into the oven for dinner, she would pray over the food and pray for the people who are going to be receiving the food. And so he said the most influential person for him was his mother. And I thought that was very, very powerful and wonderful to hear, especially a more modern story of how motherhood impacted the life of this man who is now a saint. So anyway, dear moms, we are working out our salvation one mommy moment at a time. I think the next video I'm going to go ahead and talk about those days. You know those days? I know those days. And I know you know those days. So we'll talk a little bit about that and try to be encouraging to one another as we work at our salvation, one mommy moment at a time. God bless you.